welcome to the Friday Fraudster podcast. Join them as they discuss sad, funny, and sometimes disturbing fraud stories. Be sure to catch past episodes on your favorite podcasting platform or go to www.fridayfraudster.com and grab some CPE while you're there.
Ooh, well, welcome to episode number 111.
Yeah.
It's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, you have so many.
Yeah, that's a lot of freaking episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christine.
Yes.
I got a question for you.
Shoot.
How old were you when you bought your first car?
I didn't buy it. I was fortunate enough. My parents did get me a vehicle when I was 16.
Ooh.
It wasn't anything fancy by all means. The car was older than I was.
Okay. So, yeah. So what about the first one you bought?
I think I was 18.
Ooh.
Went to some rinky-dink corner dealership. So it wasn't like a Ford dealer or anything else. It was one of those. It was one of my first vehicles. Very proud of myself. Got lending. My mom co-signed on it.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. But I was responsible for the payments.
What kind of car was it?
A 98 Dodge. It had a dual overhead cam. It was a stick shift. My first four vehicles were all stick shifts. I liked driving the stick shifts.
Nice. Now, for those listening who don't know what a stick shift is, back in the day, you had to change the gears in your car, kind of like in a motorcycle. And that's what we called a stick shift. Yeah. So now Thomas is here and he's pointing out episode 111 on August the 11th. Ooh. And Carol is here watching from YouTube. Hey, I'm liking that. Stephanie is here from Idaho. And Heather said she bought her first car a few months before graduating from college. And wait a minute, and just sold it a few months ago to a neighbor.
Ooh, what kind of a car was that?
Right. That's one of those forever vehicles, right? So, you know what? So I'll tell you. I got my first car in 1989 when I turned 16. And my mom gave it to me, and it was a 1979 Datsun Nissan 510. Nissan had just bought Datsun, and it was a hatchback. And it wasn't a stick shift. It was a manual.
Okay. And
it was orange. And we called it the pumpkin because it was orange. And that little car took us everywhere. And I sold it, I think in 1991. And I got a Nissan 200SX 5-speed. It was blue. It was midnight blue. And man, that thing could go.
Were you racing it? Is that what you're saying?
I cannot confirm or deny whether I was racing it or not. But I tell you what, I got my own financing. So there was a credit union that specialized in military dependents and or active duty military personnel. And my dad was in the military, spent 20 years in the Air Force. So I went directly to the credit union by myself. And they gave me a loan at 17 or 18 in my own name.
You paid it though, right?
I definitely paid it off. Definitely paid it off. But yeah, it was in my name. Uh-oh, wait, did I get it wrong, Stephanie? Is that you? Oh, yep, that's Stephanie. Now, oh, Stephanie is saying had to sell her first stick shift because her ex didn't know how to drive it.
Well, that's how I got into driving a stick shift because my parents bought me. It was like a 1980 Ford Fiesta tin bucket. Oh. But I was coming home and there it was on the road. And I looked at my dad. I go, "Whose is that?" And he goes, "It's yours, but you have to learn to drive it." And I go, "And if I don't learn," he goes, "You don't have a car."
There you go.
And it took me snubbing out once in the middle of the main street in front of her house, and he just goes, turn it back on. Go.
Yeah. So I tell you what, the first time I drove a stick, I could only get it into one gear.
First or neutral?
Reverse. So I drove it around the neighborhood in reverse.
Oh,
yeah. True story. And you know, here's what was funny. It really wasn't me, because you know how with a stick shift, you have the gear shift and you move it in order to put it in, you know, different gears. Well, this one had a little latch up under the gear knob that you had to pull up while you were changing gears. I had never seen anything like it before in my life. And so when my cousin came back and said, hey, I noticed you driving around backwards. Could you not get it in the first gear? And I was like, no, I couldn't. And he showed me the one little simple trick. I did it. But I learned just by watching him. Like he never taught me or anything. I just saw him doing it. And I said, I can do this, you know, silly little stubborn boy, right? It's like, I can do this. So, yeah.
Well, and mine were always stick shift, because my first brand new car, like brand new off the lot, was a manual transmission. Because at 21, it's a lot cheaper. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I got that brand new car for like $13,000. It was cheap.
You know, you're right. Because back in the day, if you bought a manual transmission or stick shift, it was cheaper than getting an automatic. You're absolutely right. I remember that now. So have you ever bought a car from an individual?
We actually just did, because our like a week ago, because our oldest, who is 17 going on 18, had one of our older vehicles and that one went kaput. So we've been looking around, because the price of used vehicles is it's not necessarily cheap, but you can't find a 17-year-old vehicle for under 10 grand. At a reputable dealership. We do have dealerships in the area. We talked to our mechanic, and our mechanic, there's some that they sit there and say, if you buy a car off their lot, we're not touching it.
Yeah. So here's what I'm wondering for anybody who's listening right now. Have you ever purchased a car from an individual? Back in the day, you did it all the time. There were magazines. There was this magazine called Auto Trader. And I remember it cost $2. We would go up to the store. I think it was a 7-Eleven in front of my neighborhood, and we would buy the Auto Trader magazine, partly because we were dreaming about the cars that we wanted when we turned 16. And then when we turned 16, we were ready to buy. And we had jobs, and so you could buy your own car, and you could buy a fairly nice car at about $2,000 to $3,000 back in the day. So the first car I bought from a person, I paid $5,000 for, and it was a Honda Accord. I don't remember what year it was, but it was a Honda Accord, and it was pretty nice. I think it was a 1989, and I think I bought it in 1994, something like that. But I paid $5,000 for it, and I paid cash for it. Yeah, my little fast food job gave me some money. It paid off. Now, Heather is saying she's only bought cars from the dealership. Now, back in the day, before you bought a car from somebody, dealership or a person, you would take it to your mechanic and you would get it checked out. Now, where I grew up and when I grew up, everybody had a guy for something. You had your electrical guy, you had your car guy, you had your home improvement guy. So I had a car guy, and his name was Popeye, like the Sailor Man. Toot, toot. And we would take all of our cars to Popeye. So Popeye would look at all my cars before I bought them. There was no such thing as Carfax back then. So do you have a car guy, Christine?
We have our dealership, or not our dealership, sorry, our mechanic, our local mechanic. And before my husband and I met, I had been taking my vehicle there. I call in. I know Alan's going to answer. So we have them. Did we take our vehicle in for the one that we just bought? No, we didn't. But my husband and I, we test drove it. We know what to kind of listen for, and stuff like that. So this one we didn't.
Yeah.
Hoping.
Now, Carol is saying that they would look at the newspaper ads. Yep, did that too, and paid $500 for a Skylark in 1990. The X still has it. Yeah, a Buick Skylark. Those were some really good vehicles. But now Jules is saying that Honda, yes, my old Honda is probably still on the road. I took really good care of it, and so did the people I bought it from. Yeah. And Heather says she misses her mechanic. They moved away from him. Yeah, when you get a good mechanic, a good car guy, as I like to call them, you have to keep them because, man, they can work wonders for you. I remember, now, do you remember, Christine, when they first started giving you Carfax for vehicles? You know what a Carfax is?
Yes, I do. I want to say, I'm trying to think because I was in lending. So I did do a lot of consumer lending in my history before I became an auditor. I don't think those really started coming around until what, late 90s, early 2000s?
I'm thinking early 2000s. Yeah. I don't even remember it in the late 90s. And you had to pay for it. And so for those of you who don't know what a Carfax is, it is essentially a checkup that you get on your vehicle. And it tells you the health of your vehicle. If it's been in any car wrecks, it'll usually show up there. If it's been flooded or in a wreck, it'll show up on
way
the
off. They started in 84.
Really? Well, I never saw them. But you know why though?
They worked closely with the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association. So it might have just, otherwise it says about 1993.
Well, back in the day, you had to actually pay for it yourself.
Right.
And, we were cheap back then. We didn't want to spend any extra money, even if it was something that could warn us of something. Now, here's some interesting information. Stephanie is saying that auto check is cheaper if you have to pay for it yourself. So now all of this car talk, and you guys are probably wondering, where the heck is Robert going with all this car talk? So listen, this week, we're talking about some gentlemen who were entrepreneurs. You see, they bought and said,
they thought they were.
Now, for those of you who are listening on the podcasting platforms, the look on Christine's face is really just funny. They were entrepreneurs, though, Christine. What they did was they bought and sold vehicles. And I think that takes a real skill, right? To identify a vehicle, to haggle and negotiate the price of it, and then to sell it for more than what you purchased it for. I think these young men, they were all under 21. So they should be commended for being entrepreneurs. Don't you think, Christine?
I mean, sure. I mean, once everybody knows what the story is, I feel bad because they ruined themselves.
Oh, they sure did. Yeah.
They ruined themselves.
They did. But you know what? Oh, go ahead.
I know. I just think it's sad. I mean, they have to be smart to do this.
Yeah.
In a way. I don't
know. They had to be very smart to do what they did. So let me just set the scene for you guys. There were 3 of them. One of them would actually go and find the vehicles. The other one was the mechanic that would make sure that the vehicle was okay before they sold it to someone else. And then the third person would sell the vehicle to another party. So far, so good, right? Under 21, making a lot of money. And then when they actually made profits from the sale of the vehicles, they would spend the money on vehicles for themselves. They bought, what did they buy? They bought a Lamborghini, I think. I think one of them bought a Lambo. No, I'm wrong about that. I'll have to find the exact vehicle. They bought a Corvette. I do remember that one.
And a McLaren.
Oh, and a McLaren. Yes.
McLaren.
They paid $140,000 for a McLaren. So now, 3 gentlemen under the age of 21 that could afford a McLaren, they've got to be doing something right in their business, right?
I want people to guess. How can you make that much money?
You're right. So if you're listening, take a wild guess as to what these individuals did and how they made money. I tell you what, whoever gets the answer right without cheating, whoever gets the answer right, I'll give you a copy of my book, Ask Better Questions, Get Better Answers, Perform Better Audits. Of course, you'll have to give me your address, and you can give me a P.O. box. Amazon delivers the P.O. boxes. But whoever can guess what they've done. Now watch, Heather's going to be the one to guess because she wins all the time. She's won before when I've given stuff away. But whoever can guess what these gentlemen did within the next 90 seconds. Ooh,
good guesses.
All righty. So let's see. Who is this? This is Stephanie said that they keep the sales tax. They did not keep the sales tax, Stephanie. They did not. And now Debbie is saying money laundering. They did not launder any money. Surprisingly, it is not money laundering. Ooh, title fraud. Is that Carol? Yeah, that's Carol.
That's close.
Title fraud. Carol, close, but no cigar. Heather says it's a startup. It's a startup company. Ooh, Thomas says sold the same car multiple times. No. No.
Think, how can I put this maybe as a clue? Think something people would have done 15, 20 years ago that was really easy to do. Ooh, I got a better clue. Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, that is a really good clue. Now, David says total cars, and then they created a fraudulent Carfax report. Partially a part of what happened, David, but not the actual scheme. So they weren't totaled vehicles. I will say that. Ooh, Heather says check kiting. Oh wow.
But not it.
Ooh, Lavelle. Now, who is Lavelle? Let me see. I have to see who Lavelle. Lavelle is a senior tax auditor at the Virginia Department of, I'm assuming, Transportation. Lavelle said mileage, ding, ding, ding. And Stephanie said they roll back the odometer, ding, ding, ding. Both of you are correct?
Technically correct. Because they didn't roll them back.
Ooh, you know what? Yeah. We're going to give credit to that answer. So, Lavelle, if you would like a copy of that book, you know what? I'm feeling good today. Stephanie, you want a copy too? Let me know. So technically they did not roll back the mileage. So here's what they did. And you know what? We had some fun setting this one up, but this one was really intricate if you think about it. These three gentlemen, again, under the age of 21. Here's what they did. One of them would find the vehicles. The second one that I said was the mechanic. He would actually disable the digital odometer. Now, back in the day, we didn't have digital odometers, right, Christine? They weren't digital.
Correct.
Right? So
they would roll them back because when your car was off, the odometer was still there.
Right.
Or when your car was on.
Yep.
I guess.
So back in the day, they actually had to roll back the odometer. What they did was they simply disabled the digital odometer and they said to people, it's only $40 to fix it. So you can go fix it yourself. And when they sold the car to the individuals and they went and got the odometer fixed, they found out that many cars had mileage on it more than what they were initially told. And in one instance, one car had over 100,000 more miles than they were told it had.
And we all know that significantly devalues a vehicle.
Yep. It was a Subaru Outback. So those are usually pretty good vehicles and pretty expensive vehicles, right?
Well, and people know, I mean, I think a Subaru, Toyota, those are the vehicles that you think, hey, if I'm getting it at 100, 120,000 miles, I still have 200,000 miles that I could still get off of this vehicle.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I'm guessing from the cars that they were buying in cash, it said $1,000 to $2,000, pretty cheap. They're not newer vehicles. But I know my assumption when we bought Will's car was, hey, it's a 2010. It only has 140,000 miles on it, but we did buy it from an older couple.
Exactly.
That didn't drive a whole lot.
Yeah. 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 My car is an older vehicle, but it's a hybrid, and it had very few miles on it. It was from an older couple, and it is still rocking and rolling, and she'll be with me until she drops. So David says, reliable, yes, maybe not expensive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now, police say that in addition to Subarus, they also purchased a Porsche, Lexus, Ford F-150 for resale. They have purchased at least $250,000 worth of vehicles with their illegal proceeds.
Mm-hmm. So here's my question. All right. So number one, you said they paid cash for the McLaren, $140,000, $60,000 cash for the Corvette. Based on the article, it wasn't BSA reporting that caught these guys.
It was not BSA reporting. For those who don't know what that is, that's the Bank Secrecy Act. And what happens is if you make a deposit in a bank that's over $3,000, I believe it is, the bank. Oh, no, I'm thinking about suspicious activity reporting. Never mind. Wrong thing.
You're thinking about if like I would purchase a cashier's check for over $3,000,
right.
and have to put it on record. So anything, and it goes for car dealerships too. So if anybody comes into a car dealership with $10,000 and one penny, they have to file that BSA.
Right. Yep. And Stephanie, I think this is just said it. That's Carol. I'm sorry. $10,000. So a $10,000 deposit or transaction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Paperwork has to be filed.
And I'm guessing they bought those vehicles under their real name.
No, they use fake names.
Even for the ones that they bought for themselves?
Oh, for themselves? I don't know. It didn't say that. Now, Heather is saying it was the guy who disabled the cars that told on them. No, Heather. Unless you saw a story we didn't see. Here's what we saw. So apparently these gentlemen were a part of the racing community in Utah. So, they probably had the souped up vehicles. And one of the apartment complexes where they sold a vehicle to someone, there was a security camera. Because at first the police were stumped. They couldn't find them. But there was one apartment complex that had security cameras, and the police were able to find the individuals based on the security cameras at one of the apartment complexes.
And it just trickled down from there.
It trickled down from there. And apparently they were really good friends. They were saying when they were arrested, they were talking about going out the night before to a pickleball tournament or something like that. So they were friends, and what's the Fast and the Furious movies? We ride together. No, that was Bad Boys for Life. We die together. Bad Boys for Life. So yeah. Police. But Christine, do you remember how many victims the police said there are?
Okay, so I think they said it was initially 10, but then he said every day the detective would come into work, he'd open his laptop, and he'd have a new case in his queue.
Yeah.
Because they were buying some of the vehicles from other states, then bringing them in. Yeah, that's just crazy.
So now they say that they're thinking that there's anywhere between 300 to 600 victims.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big variance.
And they had to have been pushing a lot Because didn't they think that these guys started it back in 2021?
Yeah, something like that. Let me see what they said that the scheme can be traced back to at least 2021. So that's how far they've actually traced it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 19, 20, and 21. And
Yep.
it's, I mean, the charges that they're going to face. So I went ahead because we're selling the vehicle that is completely broke down. Yes, the person who's buying it knows he's a mechanic. We're doing a mechanic special because we just put $900 worth of tires on that Suburban 2 weeks before it decided to die on us. But so I have the title and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, what could, and I know I'm asking the DMV of every single state a lot here, analytical software. Okay. So I know in the state of Wisconsin, if I would purchase a vehicle, the title that they originally have would have the odometer reading from when they purchased the vehicle. And then I should be able to, come to a conclusion on how many miles should be on the vehicle if you were to drive around 8 to 12,000 a year as far as that. But then it also got me thinking, okay, well, what about the exception? I am technically an exception. I don't drive my car every day. I work from home. My vehicle's a 2019, and I think I just broke 7,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
So would somebody trust to purchase my vehicle? I mean, my odometer wouldn't be broken, but I mean, is there a capability of having that type of a red flag sort of thing that's going on? I mean, but even then, they wouldn't find out about it until these individuals went and got it titled.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
even if they got it fixed.
You make a good point though, because with these, I guess the mileage still seemed reasonable. Well, actually, no, they didn't have the mileage because the odometer was disabled. But what if the odometer is working? What would be some red flags? Because I'll tell you, in the last 3 years, I've driven my car less than 5,000 miles in 3 years. So would that be a red flag to someone? Maybe I'll color my hair gray and say this car was owned by a little old man who didn't go anywhere.
Well, I guess in this instance, because of us buying that vehicle recently, I would not have bought a vehicle from an individual if the odometer wasn't working.
Right. And then and so here's our red flag though, for this particular instance and anyone facing something similar, because they said that the odometer wasn't working and they said it only costs $40 to fix. Well, if it only costs $40 to fix, how about you fix it?
I'll give you the $40 when it's done.
Yeah. Better yet, you want it sold? No, you eat the $40.
Right.
Because a Carfax costs about $30 or $40. So how about I just get a Carfax then? Oh, by the way, in this case, they did alter Carfax. So they did have fake Carfaxes that they gave to people.
It just makes me wondering if they were selling them, because they said they were selling them anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 a piece.
Yep.
Is it one of those things too good to be true? Like I said, it's really hard for us. We couldn't find vehicles at a dealership. I think we looked at a couple of cars that we were like, oh, it looks really nice from the pictures. And then I would show up and I'm like, yeah, this doesn't look anything like like you didn't tell us that the back bumper had a huge hole in it.
Oh no. Yeah. The cost of vehicles have definitely gone up. I'm hearing now that people have car loans that are about $1,000 a month. So, yeah, finding a vehicle is probably difficult. And I'm sure that there are some people taking an advantage of others. But what would be too good to be true? A repair that is simple that they hadn't fixed, I guess, right? A Carfax that you didn't obtain yourself, especially if you get it from an individual, you get it from a dealership, ideally.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't think it was weird if somebody had their Carfax. I mean, I didn't get one for Will's car, but I don't know. Maybe I trust people too much in the area that we live in.
Yeah, well, trust but verify, right?
Right. I should take my own advice.
Oh boy.
But yeah, it's making me wonder, like, if they, I mean, what did they do with all the cash? Did they make deposits into their accounts? But even then, if we sit here and think about how many BSA, red flag, SARS that FinCEN gets every single year, they could have still, you know what I'm saying, flown under that. So even if they were at a financial institution that was monitoring account activity, and all of a sudden you've got this 19, 20, 21-year-old that's bringing in this cash that doesn't really mimic what they do for a daily job, is FinCEN going to find that?
Here's the other thing. What if they actually had a legitimate business? It only costs $100 to do an LLC. So
Right.
what if they had a legitimate business where they were actually depositing the money into a business checking account? Because I think just because they had an account with money in it doesn't mean that their activity would have been illegal, right? Those
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. And I think it would depend on what type of business.
Yeah. And so Heather brings up a good point. She says, I'm sure they never sold cars to any of the racing circuit guys. They would have never let that slide. But what if their business had something to do with racing cars? And what if they already had a car business having to do with the racing? Then they have a legitimate business by which they can funnel the illegal activities through too.
Yeah, because what are they all being charged with?
Oh boy, here are the counts. Let's see. It's 10 of them. I mean, it's 30 of them. 10 counts of theft by deception, 10 counts of forgery, and 10 counts of odometer fraud with the intent to defraud.
And that's a federal that's a federal offense, isn't it?
The odometer, I don't know. I was looking it up before we started, and I didn't finish looking it up. I think it might be though. Let's see here.
And they can face a civil penalty.
So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it is a federal. Oh, wow.
Up to 3 years in prison for each. It's a felony. You can get up to 3 years in prison for each one.
Wow. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said that in 2002, odometer fraud, it was determined that 450,000 vehicles were sold each year using false odometer readings, costing over $1 billion annually. Now, that was in 2002. And in the UK, the Office of Fair Trading estimates the cost to be 500 million pounds. So, yeah.
Be on alert. A recent study conducted by the National Highway Traffic Safety concluded that there are 3.5% chance that a car has a turned back odometer.
Oh, wow. And while that is still low, it's still higher than you'd like it to be, right? Yikes.
Mm-hmm. Vehicles formerly owned by leasing companies are often late model vehicles with high mileage that makes them tempting targets for odometer tampering specialists.
Ooh. Yeah. And I'd have to imagine the people, if there are 300 to 600 victims, I'd imagine that the price of the vehicle was still fairly reasonable, even though low, but not low enough to where they would say, oh no, we're not buying this.
Ooh, Carfax has what they call run an odometer accuracy check free of charge on their website.
Never heard of that.
The check will indicate whether or not your vehicle has ever been subject to odometer fraud. All that is needed is to run the 17-character VIN found on the dashboard. If the check shows a potential odometer discrepancy, mine says contact the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for assistance.
Oh, so it's potential. So it's doing exactly what you were saying, because they do get that information now, I think, from titles, Carfax, that is. And you can kind of estimate how many miles you think a car should have on it. But I'll tell you, like my car only has like 117,000 miles on it, and it's an older car. It's a 2010, I believe. So
I've never really received a Carfax report before. Has anybody in the audience gotten one before? Does it show you
I have.
what it was previously registered with for mileage?
I think mine did show estimated mileage on it, I think. But I've gotten one before. I got one in one car I bought. I can't remember what year it was now. But I did get one, and I think it had something like let me see. Now I'm curious. Let me look this up. Does Carfax have mileage information? Yes. All 50 state DMVs provide records to Carfax. Information is gathered from collision repair centers, insurance companies, rental companies, fire departments, law enforcement agencies, dealerships, import-export companies, auction houses, etc.
It's like I kind of want. Holy cow! Carfax is not cheap. It's $45 a report.
Yeah. Back in the day, it was like 29 or 35 or something. Yeah, it is not cheap at all.
Oh wow. I don't know. Like I said, I don't feel bad for the kids. They did what they did. I feel bad that they screwed up their life. Looking at their mug shots, it only looks like one of them is really that upset about it.
Oh yeah, you're right. Oh, you know what? Let's see.
One just kind of has a little bit of a smirk. The other one's kind of smiling, not showing his teeth. And I think the other one's like, oh, crap.
Let's see here. We can...
You're going to share your screen?
Yeah. So the one in the middle looks fairly worried.
Yes.
It's like a deer in the headlights. He's like, what have I done? Yeah. So back to the Carfax. Apparently, they have deals with a bunch of car service organizations. They look at DMV records, all that kind of stuff. A huge data analysis project, it sounds like, and they pull all the data together, and that's how they present you with the Carfax.
This is just making me, I don't want to say anxious. I still have 2 more vehicles I have to buy. I have a 14 and 11-year-old.
Yikes. Well, yeah, it's scary. It is very scary. So, all right. Episode 111, The Carfax of Life. Did anybody get that? You know how I come up with these titles. What do you think?
How do you come up with them? Are you using ChatGPT?
No. It's just, I don't know. It's, I think when you have jobs like ours, when you're an auditor or an accountant, secretly you want to be creative, and this is where the creative juices come out. So,
well, you do very well at it.
I appreciate it. And I think, too, it comes out in my training presentations, because I'm told that I'm a very good storyteller and I'm entertaining and educational. So edutaining is what I'm told. So this is where I get creative.
Yeah.
Well, David says they will be flying in the next 5 years. Wait, what do you mean? Wait, did I miss something? Are they going to be pilots? That's what you think, David?
Going into buying and selling airplanes.
Yeah, well, who knows where these guys are going to be in the next 5 years? Probably nowhere good, though, because they actually established a business enterprise. You got to think they made 6 figures.
Well, whichever one is the mechanic, I could see him not getting as much time because essentially all he did was disconnect, even though you still can't disconnect odometers. I have a feeling one of them's going to turn on the other two.
Oh. David is saying cars will be flying in the next 5 years. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, I saw something where apparently there's a prototype out there now. I'm sure there's probably been a prototype for years, but yeah. Apparently there's one out there now.
We can't even avoid accidents now when we got lines on the road and lights to tell us when we need to go and stop.
Well, you know,
unless they're self-flying cars, I guess.
Oh geez, look, we're still working on the self-driving ones.
I know.
Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for episode number 111, The Car Facts of Life. Be sure to go over to your favorite podcasting platform and give us a 5-star review. Go over to my website, sign up for my newsletter, thatauditguy.com. And by the way, if you are a local IIA chapter or even a company that has more than 10 auditors, call me. We need to talk because I can deliver kick butt training to your group so that you can get them good training at reasonable rates to satisfy all of your training needs. Personal and customizable training. How's that?
Perfect. Nice plug.
All right. We'll see you all next week.